podcasts, blogs, and audiences, alignments, loyalties, and responsibilities. From blog to blab. Hello to all my fellow patriots in this vast battlefield we find ourselves upon together. I am in deep thought, encouraged to write this, not to the podcasters, not to the bloggers, but to those who are in the audiences of both said services and works. Though I am certain all will find a perspective previously not considered, please let me begin by saying I encourage all to collect themselves, to deny all jerk reactions of offense. I say this not to set you up to be offended, but quite the opposite. To consciously deny an offense and allow logic and self-honesty to step forward first and foremost. For the perspective that I personally am about to speak from is very important. And I stand in this place with you all as well, because I myself am now involved in all three. First, let's take a short look at bloggers and podcasters. Any and all that involve other persons in their work, for example, testimonies of others, must involve themselves in a working and personal relationship on some level with all that come together in this way. There are relationships of many kinds built, boundaries and promises put in place, and mutual understandings placed as foundations for the most successful outcome to be brought forth together. As an audience, we must understand that we are not present for any of these things, and we are not privy to what they are. This is appropriate and necessary. We also must consider the reality that this relationship, aside from what we view, is none of our business, and we must never assume we know the inner workings and cast any judgment upon any said parties as if we do. We simply do not. This can be difficult to remember as our attachments with those we spend our time with in these settings and invest ourselves into grows naturally over time, and if we are not careful, can cause an unhealthy and unrealistic bias to form in our minds. It would be wise for us to step back and look at this attachment more as an observer than a partaker for a moment. We attend these podcasts. We engage in live chats, enter into community settings. Testimonies begat healing and a safe place to be understood. Things no one has ever understood before. Yet suddenly we find ourselves among others that deeply do understand things about ourselves for the first time. That's very powerful. We have hosts and guests of podcasts watching the live chat we engage in. They see us, they respond and engage with us sometimes. That is also a formation of a relationship. Same with bloggers. Responses to and engagements in blog comments have the same effect. Bonds form, trusts grow, and attachments form. Oftentimes, bloggers express their personal views, observations, and feelings, like I'm doing here, giving a window into who they are. Kept in a realistic element, growing an affection for those we invest our attention in is not a bad thing. It becomes negative when we begin to step away from the reality of these online relationships that we enter into. It would serve us all well to remember that our seeking began with finding safe places to glean information we are desiring to find, and to be around like-minded individuals who can understand us on some level. To remember that yes, bonds may form, but online bonds always hold an element of the unknown, and everything can change in a moment. In relationship, in podcasts, in blogging, and sometimes we will never know why. We need to remember to expect that possibility at any time and reserve the most vulnerable parts of ourselves for relationships with a more realistic presence. This is the healthiest position to remain in. Let's take an even deeper look at this and how this dynamic can form. This dynamic of full, vulnerable investment of self that harms so many repetitively. We can begin to feel vulnerable and loving to those we view and hear on screen. Yes, we give much of ourselves to them as we watch them, spend time with them, and engage with them. We see their life phases, their struggles, their ups and downs. There is an intimacy in being able to observe someone's mannerisms and emotions with our eyes, and to hear the same with our ears, and to take in their feelings from their intimate literature. In this, aware or not, we are relating to them and forming bonds with them in our minds. Remember, that is a one-way activity. As we give ourselves to these people in our hearts, we must remember that they are not receiving the exact same intimate experience that we are. Ours is more intimate than theirs. Yes, they most often do care genuinely about us, that invest into them. But that is a reality gap we must remember. We must never stumble into a place if we become attached in our hearts to podcasters, guests, and bloggers, the need for that emotion to be reciprocated. If we do this, we step into the dangers of behaving in unhealthy ways to acquire that attachment that we have grown to be reciprocated. Willingness to engage in behaviors that are unhealthy then take root. Making decisions like these based on feelings will lead us around blindly. We become vulnerable to making poor decisions to make obvious how we feel, in efforts to have said individual's affection for us to be returned to our personal satisfaction. This makes us ripe to be utilized as unhealthy weaponry, spiritually and by any who are observing, recognizing this vulnerable need and are watchful for this opportunity to prey upon this vulnerability. We must remember that these types of individuals are, sadly, always among us, and very rarely present themselves as anything different than us in genuine intention. This desperation is a very, very unhealthy mindset. It causes us to have unfair and unreal expectations and to take offense and or defense of situations that we have no business of involving ourselves into whatsoever, in an attempt to show our loyalty in certain situations that in reality generally is a one-way loyalty and a self-fabricated relationship. When this can become an even unhealthier situation is when podcasters, givers of testimonies, whistleblowers, etc. have a public split. And the attachments that we have formed in our hearts and minds cause us to behave in ways that are not helpful for any of us, but has great potential to be quite destructive and divisive for all involved, therein giving an easy opportunity for any who may be present, waiting to pounce on this all too common dynamic. Let me explain. Our main loyalty should always remain first and foremost to come together as a front, standing together against the evil establishments that never rest in their attempts to take us all out. Yes, audience attenders, even us. We are all being observed indeed. Also, it's very important that we do not forget that there was a relationship formed in co-working situations when we were not present that we have no knowledge of. We should never believe as if we have this relationship figured out. I can guarantee you that there are many elements at play off screen concerning the private relationship between host and guests in podcasts. This is a necessity for safety, for not all that are watching are those who are with us but against us. Many of us are well aware of this reality. It is one we should always wear on our sleeves far before our hearts. There is a respect that should be present in knowing that those we view that are working together have formed bonds we are unaware of. That respect will keep us in remembrance that their dynamic is theirs alone, and their relationship is nothing for us to poke our noses into, whether it appears strong or parts ways. Let's talk about when a split does happen. Almost always, the audience wants to know why. We desire to be involved in the intimacies of the separation, right? Because we have invested quite a bit of ourselves into the relationship before us being solid. Now seeing a possible dissolving, there's a bit of a devastation that rises up within us, often triggering relationships in our own lives that painfully ended. We must remember that this is not our relationship and therefore not our business. But not only is it none of our business, also, we have not proven ourselves worthy of or safe handlers of this information whatsoever. What do I mean? Well, let's be honest. Where does another immediate need of this information come from? Is it not the need to know which side to pick and which side to come against? For sides are picked not based upon truth, but the emotional attachments that have been made, and oftentimes very unhealthy pedestalizing of some of those that we view. If we are honest with ourselves, oftentimes we lift people up that we view in unfair expectations and then become unfairly upset when these individuals don't meet them. We want to pick a side based on non-foundational bias. Why did we remove our loyalty from where it should have permanently remained? We should always remain steadfast in support and healing of ourselves and others we have become involved with. Exhibit self-control and caring quiet when a separation does occur. This is very rarely done. We have seen it time and time again. Divisions ensue, friendships break, public disagreements fuel further toxicity among many. Please know I am excluding operations to expose infiltrators that pretend to be against wickedness, but in truth are exposed to be a part of it. The division grows, triggers are flipped, old wounds surface, meanness pours forth, rumors begin, lives are damaged, trust is pummeled, and it ripples community-wide, and the result is often this. The progression that has been made in healing in many is destroyed in doubt of the solidity of all that they previously invested themselves into. Individuals with powerful testimonies that have come out of hiding to share them disappear again. This is the most common result of public splits of those who have created a community of an audience in deeply important subject matters. Because of this, I must say, audiences have proven themselves unsafe to handle any intimate details of a public separation, and so should never expect them. In fact, because this is the most common outcome and audience response, I urge you to think twice about remaining with any podcaster or blogger that publicly tosses their previous counterpart under the so-called bus, encouraging their audience to join into a lynch mob mentality with them. This is a glaringly bright red flag. In fact, this indicates the very real possibility that this individual feels like they have the right to demand your continued presence, even if that means manipulating you to keep it, as if they have some kind of ownership over it. Scary thought, isn't it? This individual has no business presenting themselves as anyone to lend an ear or thought to in any way, let alone an alignment. So then, what is the appropriate response? As far as the podcaster or blogger is concerned, if anything at all is divulged to viewers, which should never be expected by us, it should be mutual on grounds, reiterating that a separation in goals has come forth. Perhaps beliefs became so separated that they mutually decided to move on. Even if a flat-out disagreement occurred, still not our business. Simply explain to the viewers that new activities will take place in different places, and to encourage viewers to behave appropriately and without bias and suspect, but to engage in peace and mutual respect, to remain in attendance in the place that fulfills their needs in healing and growing, that there is no loyalty to be gained or lost with that decision for anyone or towards anyone, to simply continue to support all as they always have. The only exception to this is when a public figure counterpart has proven themselves as an infiltrator deceiving everyone intentionally, or is a damaging and dangerous influence. Only then is exposure of anything appropriate, in my opinion. So what is the responsibility of us audience members? Oh yes, we have our own responsibilities. And we must understand that our behaviors and reactions are very impactful and important to the community as a whole, and podcasters and bloggers. Just because we are not the ones on the screen does not mean that we cannot create great damage to the entire community. Indeed, we can. And we must proceed wisely and gently. We must never decide that we know the intimate details of a separation. Remember, we are not involved in the relationship that had to form for the blog or podcast to take place to begin with. So we must set our biases completely to the side and leave them there. Where do we feel that we can serve the most effectively by our presence? Sit back and decide to attend where we can best serve the needs of others and our needs are most met. Where do we find our healing the most? Where is most helpful to our growth that we are pursuing? If we have forgotten that we began this journey with this as our goals in the first place, it is now time to remember. Where are we most effective in this fight against our common foe? Where is our support most helpful for everyone? In asking and answering these questions, we can decide where is best for us to invest most of ourselves into. And if we did lose sight of our needs by becoming attached to a public figure in an unhealthy manner, learn this lesson and do not repeat it. Also, as someone who also live streams, I will add this for all audience members to know. Your attendance is of utmost importance to us. For me personally, obeying the Lord and doing my best to do His will in my life is my first priority with all of my work. After that, please understand, audience members, when you attend and engage in live chats and comments, it lets us know that we are serving well, as we desire to do. Donations and monetary help is very welcomed, yes, and unfortunately kind of needed. Unfortunately, any income we receive, for a lot of us, for our work, indeed, lays upon all of your shoulders alone. We hate it, but we cannot change it. But it is your presence and your attendance that helps us be able to know that we are properly serving the viewers as we so desire to do. Your engagement and live chat can play a large hand into the overall direction and progress in what we are doing. Yes, this is community-wide work, and your presence is very important to us. Now that I have divulged that reality, please bear that knowledge kindly. Thank you. So how do you respond if you feel like suspicions of unwanted behavior has been confirmed in your own mind? Simply remove your presence of support. Please do not go into back channels and chats and start rumor mills and destructive divisions. These are seeds that grow into acres of destruction for many and last for a very long time, damaging more than anyone can ever see. Just simply remove your presence where you feel uncomfortable and support where your comfort is present. This is our right and our responsibility as audience members. Remember, as audience members, we are responsible to go where we can find the healing that we are seeking, where we can serve and help others in their healing, where we can have a positive hand in community-wide growth and the camaraderie that is most healthy to our goals altogether. In this, we can become more whole and healthy to serve others more effectively in our everyday lives. In conclusion, as audience members, we must understand in this community-wide place, we do have great responsibilities. We can deny a toxic ocean of damaging fallout in a public split, or we can build a raging storm. We can help podcasters and guests further their endeavors and be a part of them, or we can have a hand in silencing them. We can be a ball-peen hammer in the chaos of destruction or a tool in the building up of each other and those we spend our time giving our attention to. Our reactive behavior to the activities of podcasters can show them that we desire honor and integrity if we handle public splitting situations in the same manner. We must bear this responsibility well, for it is indeed a great responsibility. And public splits will indeed occur. as goals will be met and then different goals will arise, creating a separation. As we are all imperfect humans in chat or on screen or in blogs, us as audience members need to mature into a place where we handle our responsibilities well, not in a way that incurs further destruction to ourselves and all involved. Thank you all. Be blessed and keep each other in constant prayer. Remember to do everything in love. Matthew 5:9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Amy Jo, Truths Are Freedom.